The alarm on the bridge of the silent current made a loud beeping sound. Captain Cale Thorne opened his 4 eyes and looked at the screen in front of him. His blue skin had dark lines on it that showed he was getting old. He had been a ship captain for 20 years now. "What is it, Vex?" he asked the crystal being at the communications desk. Vex's body was made of clear blue crystal that changed colors when he talked. "Captain, I am getting a distress signal. It is very weak, but it is there." Thorne got up from his chair and walked over to Vex's station. The bridge was small and old. Everything on it needed to be fixed or replaced, but they did not have enough money for that. The silent current was not a big ship. It was a merchant vessel that carried goods from one planet to another. Thorne and his crew barely made enough money to keep flying. "Where's the signal coming from?" Thorne asked. "The dead system. The one with no planets left," Vex said. His crystal body turned orange, which meant he was worried. Thorne thought about this. The dead system was a place where a star had exploded long ago. Nothing lived there now. It was dangerous to go there because of all the broken pieces of rock floating around. "Rix, what do you think?" Thorne called to his engineer. Rix was working, under a control panel. She was an insect-like being with 6 arms and big compound eyes. Her body was covered in hard brown shell. She crawled out from under the panel and looked at Thorne with her many eyes. "The ship can handle it, Captain," she said in her clicking voice. "But we should be careful. There are many big rocks in that system." The 4th member of the crew was Naya. She was floating in a tank of water behind the navigation controls. Her body looked like a cross between a fish and a person. She had gills on her neck and fins instead of hands. "The navigation will be hard," Naya said. Her voice came through a speaker because she could not talk in air. "But I can do it if we go slow." Thorne looked at his crew. They were all different species, but they had been together for 5 years. They trusted each other with their lives. But this was risky. Going into the dead system could damage their ship. If that happened, they might not be able to get out. "Captain," Vex said, "the signal is getting weaker. If someone is out there, they do not have much time." Thorne made his decision. "Set course for the dead system. We go in slow and careful." The next few hours were tense. Naya guided the ship through fields of broken rocks and metal. Some of the pieces were as big as buildings. The silent current moved slowly between them like a fish swimming through a coral reef. "There," Naya said. "I see something." On the main screen, they could see the remains of a ship. It was not like any ship they had seen before. The metal was strange and the design was different. Most of the ship was destroyed, but one small part was still in one piece. "Life signs?" Thorne asked. Vex's body turned bright white as he worked his controls. "Yes, Captain. Very weak, but there is someone alive in there." Thorne felt his heart beat faster. Saving someone would cost them money they did not have. Medical supplies were expensive. Food for another person would cost more. Their ship was already running low on everything, but he could not leave someone to die in space. "Rix, get the docking tools ready. We are going to bring that piece aboard." It took 2 hours to carefully move the broken piece of ship into their cargo bay. Rix had to cut through twisted metal to get to the life support section inside. When she finally opened it, they all gathered around to see what they had found. Inside was a person, but not like any person they had seen before. He was tall and thin with pale skin and dark hair. He was wearing a strange uniform and lying in a machine that was keeping him alive. "What species is this?" Naya asked through her speaker. "I do not know," Thorne said. "I have never seen anything like him." Vex's body turned purple as he scanned the being. "The life support machine is failing. He will die soon if we do not help him." Thorne looked at the stranger. He was young, maybe 25 years old in whatever species he was. His chest was moving up and down slowly as he breathed. There were cuts on his face and arms. "Get him to the medical bay," Thorne said. They carefully moved the being to their small medical room. Rix worked on the machines while Vex tried to understand the stranger's biology. Naya used the ship's computer to search for information about his species. "Nothing in the database," Naya reported. "This species is unknown." For 3 days, they worked to keep the stranger alive. Thorn had to use almost all of their medical supplies. The cost was huge. It would take months of good trading to make back the money they were spending. On the fourth day, the stranger opened his eyes. His eyes were brown and looked around the room with confusion. When he saw Thorn sitting next to his bed, he tried to sit up quickly. This made him feel dizzy and he fell back down. "Easy," Thorn said in the common trade language that most species understood. "You are safe." The stranger looked at Thorn with surprise. He said something in a language none of them had ever heard before. "Vex," Thorn called. "Come here. We need you to translate." Vex entered the medical bay, his crystal body glowing softly. He studied the stranger for a moment, then his body turned many colors as he worked. "This is difficult," Vex said. "His language is completely new, but I am learning." For the next few hours, Vex worked with the stranger to learn his language. The being was very smart and learned their trade language quickly too. By the end of the day, they could have simple conversations. "My name is Kim Day," the stranger said. His voice was deeper than Thorn expected. "I am human." Human? Thorn had never heard this word before. "Yes. My people. We had ships, colonies. But the hegemony came." Kim Day's face became sad. "They destroyed everything, took my people as slaves." Thorn knew about the hegemony. They were a cruel empire that conquered other species and made them work as slaves. They had power over many star systems in this part of the galaxy. "How did you survive?" Rix asked. She had come to see the human too. Kim Day closed his eyes. "My ship was destroyed. I got to an escape pod just in time. The life support was damaged. I thought I would die out there." "You almost did," Naya said through the speaker. "You were very close to death when we found you." Kim Day looked at each of them. "You saved me. Why? You do not even know what I am." Thorn thought about this. "Because it was the right thing to do." Kim Day's eyes filled with water. Thorn had never seen this before, and was worried that the human was sick. "Are you in pain?" Thorn asked. "No," Kim Day said, wiping his eyes. "These are tears. Humans make them when we are very sad or very happy. I am happy because you saved me, but I am sad because I have nothing to give you in return." "You do not owe us anything," Thorn said. But Kim Day shook his head. "In my culture, when someone saves your life, you owe them everything. I will work to pay you back." Over the next few days, Kim Day got stronger. He was curious about everything on the ship. He asked many questions about how things worked. When he was well enough to walk around, he started helping with small tasks. Thorn was surprised by how quickly Kim Day learned. The human watched Rix work on the engines for one day, then the next day he was helping her fix problems. He learned Naya's navigation systems in just 2 days. He even helped Vex improve the communications equipment. "He is very smart," Rix told Thorn. "Humans must be good with technology." "Maybe," Thorn said, "but I've never heard of humans before. Where did they come from?" Kim Day told them more of his story as the days passed. Humans came from a planet called Earth, far away in the galaxy. They had many colonies on different worlds, but the hegemony had attacked them without warning. Most of the human worlds were destroyed or conquered. "Some of us escaped," Kim Day said, "but we were scattered across the galaxy. I do not know how many of my people are still alive." The crew of the Silent Current began to care about Kim Day, like family. He was kind and funny. He worked hard and never complained. When Thorn worried about money, Kim Day found ways to make their systems work better so they used less fuel. After 2 weeks, they reached the space station where they planned to sell their cargo. Kim Day insisted on working at the station to help pay for his medical treatment. "You saved my life," he told Thorn. "I will not let you lose money because of me." Thorn tried to argue, but Kim Day would not listen. The human worked at the station loading cargo for other ships. He was strong and learned quickly. In 3 days, he earned enough money to pay for half of his medical costs. "You do not have to do this," Thorn told him. "Yes, I do," Kim Day said. "It is who I am. My people believe that honor is more important than life. You gave me both. As they prepared to leave the station, Kim Day asked if he could stay with them. I have nowhere else to go, he said. My people are scattered or dead, but here with you I have found a new family. Thorn looked at his crew. Rix clicked her approval. Naya's fins moved in a way that meant yes. Vex's body turned warm gold, showing he was happy. Welcome to the crew of the Silent Current, Thorn said. Kim Day smiled, and Thorn realized that saving this human might be the best decision he had ever made. The human brought more than just extra hands to their ship. He brought hope and determination. He made them all feel like they could do anything. As they flew away from the station toward their next destination, Kim Day worked beside Rix in the engine room. The human was teaching her a new way to adjust the power. 6 months had passed since Kim Day joined the crew of the Silent Current. The ship ran better than it ever had before. Kim Day's knowledge of technology had helped them fix many old problems. Their engines were more efficient. Their life support systems worked perfectly, and even their food recyclers produced better meals. Captain Thorn sat in his chair on the bridge and watched Kim Day work with Rix on a new project. The human was showing the insect engineer how to modify their cargo loading system. With Kim Day's improvements, they could load and unload cargo twice as fast as before. The magnetic clamps need to be adjusted here, Kim Day said, pointing to a diagram on his tablet. If we change the power flow, we can lift heavier containers. Rix clicked her mandibles together, which meant she was excited. Yes, I see it now. Humans are very clever with machines. Thorn smiled. Kim Day had become more than just a crew member. He was like a son to all of them. The human worked harder than anyone, never complained, and always tried to help others. He had learned to speak their languages perfectly and knew all of their customs. Captain, Vex called from his station. His crystal body was turning blue and orange, which meant he was getting an urgent message. We are receiving a distress call from Keras 7. Thorn frowned. Keras 7 was a small mining colony 3 hours away. They had been there many times to buy and sell goods. The people there were peaceful farmers and miners who just wanted to live quiet lives. What kind of distress? Thorn asked. Ships attacking the colony, Vex said. His body turned dark red, showing he was worried. The message says they need help immediately. Kim Day looked up from his work. Who would attack a mining colony? Pirates, maybe, Naya said from her water tank. Or raiders looking for slaves. The word slaves made Kim Day's face turn hard. Thorn had learned to read human expressions over the past months. When Kim Day looked like this, it meant he was very angry. We have to help them, Kim Day said. Thorn wanted to help too, but he had to think about his crew's safety. The Silent Current was not a fighting ship. They had some shields and a few small weapons, but nothing that could fight off real attackers. Kim Day, we are merchants, not soldiers, Thorn said gently. I know, Kim Day said, but we cannot just leave them to die. Before Thorn could answer, Vex spoke again. Captain, I am receiving more information. The attackers are hegemony ships. Kim Day stood up so fast that he hit his head on a pipe above him. The hegemony? Are you sure? Yes, Vex said. The colonists say there are 5 hegemony warships. They are taking prisoners. Kim Day's hands turned into fists. They are taking slaves, just like they did to my people. Thorn looked at his crew. Rix was clicking nervously. Naya's fins were moving fast, which meant she was scared. Vex's body kept changing colors as he monitored the situation. Kim Day, Thorn said, I understand how you feel, but if we go there, we will probably die. The hegemony ships are much stronger than us. Then we don't fight them directly, Kim Day said. He walked over to the navigation controls and started working on the computer. Look, the hegemony ships are here at the main settlement, but there are other places on the planet where they might be holding prisoners. Kim Day showed them a map of Keras 7. The planet had several small mining camps spread across its surface. If they are following their usual pattern, Kim Day continued, they will gather all the prisoners at one location before taking them to their slave ships. We might be able to rescue some people while the main hegemony force is busy. Rix crawled over to look at the map. It is very dangerous. If they catch us, I know, Kim Day said. But I cannot sit here and do nothing while people are being taken as slaves. You saved me from death. Now I want to save others. Thorn looked at Kim Day's face. The human's brown eyes were filled with determination. In the past 6 months, Kim Day had become family to all of them. If this was important to him, then it was important to all of them. What do you have in mind? Thorn asked. Kim Day's face lit up with hope. A quick rescue mission. We go in fast, grab whoever we can, and get out before the hegemony notices us. For the next hour, they planned their rescue mission. Kim Day knew a lot about hegemony tactics from when they attacked his people. He explained how they operated and where they were likely to hold prisoners. They will keep prisoners in groups, Kim Day said. It is easier to guard them that way. They will probably use the mining camp's own buildings to hold people. Naya plotted a course that would bring them to Karis 7 without being detected by the hegemony ships. Rix prepared their small shuttle for a quick landing and takeoff. Vex worked on jamming equipment that might hide their signals. This is still very risky, Thorn said as they approached the planet. I know, Kim Day said, but sometimes you have to take risks to do what is right. You taught me that when you saved my life. They entered the planet's atmosphere on the far side from where the hegemony ships were attacking. Naya guided them through the clouds to a small mining camp called North Ridge. As they got closer, they could see that something was wrong. There, Kim Day pointed to a building. Do you see the guards outside? Those are hegemony soldiers. Through the ship's cameras, they could see tall figures in black armor standing outside what looked like a storage building. There were at least 20 of them. Too many guards, Rick said. We cannot fight that many. Kim Day studied the scene through the camera. We don't have to fight them all. Look at the pattern of their patrols. There are gaps we can use. Kim Day was right. The guards were walking in circles around the building, but there were times when parts of the building were not being watched. I can create a distraction, Vex said. If I overload their communications, it might confuse them for a few minutes. That might work, Thorn said, but we need to be very fast. They landed the silent current behind a hill about 2 kilometers from the camp. Kim Day, Rix, and Thorn took the shuttle while Naya and Vex stayed with the main ship to provide support. Shuttle was small and quiet. Rix had modified its engines to make almost no noise. They flew low over the rocky ground, using the hills to hide from the guards. There, Kim Day whispered as they got close to the building. I can see people inside, through the windows. Through the windows, they could see about 30 beings of different species sitting on the floor inside the building. They all looked scared and tired. Vex, start the distraction, Thorn said into his communicator. A few seconds later, the hegemony guards started acting confused. They were touching their helmets and talking to each other. Some of them walked away from the building to check their equipment. Now, Kim Day said. They landed the shuttle behind the building and ran to a small door. Rix used her tools to unlock it quickly. Inside, they found the prisoners sitting in groups on the floor. We are here to rescue you, Thorn said quietly. Follow us and do not make any noise. Most of the prisoners were colonists from Karis 7, but Kim Day noticed something that made his heart beat fast. In one corner of the room sat 5 beings that looked like him. They were humans. Kim Day ran over to them. They looked up at him with surprise and hope. You're human, said one of them, an older man with gray hair. I thought we were the only ones left. My name is Kim Day, he whispered. We are getting you out of here. I am Park Min, the older man said. These are Lee So-young, Choi Jun, Han Na, and Song Tae. He pointed to the other humans. We can talk later, Thorn said. Right now we need to move. They helped the prisoners get up and move toward the door. Some of them were hurt and needed help walking. Rix and Kim Day carried the ones who could not walk on their own. But as they were leaving the building, one of the hegemony guards came, around the corner. The tall alien in black armor saw them and started to raise his weapon. Kim Day moved faster than Thorn had ever seen him move. The human tackled the guard and they both fell to the ground. They fought for the guard's weapon. Go, Kim Day shouted to the others. Get them to the shuttle. Thorn wanted to help Kim Day, but he had to get the prisoners to safety. Rix helped him guide the 30 beings toward their shuttle. Behind them, Kim Day and the guard were still fighting. The guard was bigger and stronger, but Kim Day was faster and smarter. Kim Day managed to hit the guard's helmet hard enough to knock him unconscious, but the fight had made noise. Other guards were coming. "Kim Day!" Thorn shouted. "Come on!" Kim Day ran toward the shuttle just as the first laser shots started flying over their heads. More hegemony guards were coming around the building. They all squeezed into the shuttle, which was not designed to carry so many people. Rick started the engines and they lifted off just as more guards arrived. "They are following us," Rick said, looking at her instruments. "2 hegemony fighters, I can lose them in the canyons," Rix said. She was an excellent pilot, but the shuttle was heavy with so many passengers they flew fast and low through the rocky canyons of Karis 7. The hegemony fighters were faster, but Rix knew how to use the landscape to hide from them. She flew the shuttle through narrow gaps between rocks where the bigger fighters could not follow, but one of the fighters managed to get a lucky shot. It hit the shuttle's rear engine. "We are hit," Rix shouted. "I am losing power." The shuttle started to fall toward the ground. Rix worked hard to keep them in the air, but they were going to crash. "There!" Naya's voice came over the communicator. The silent current drifted slowly through the asteroid field, hidden from any ships that might be looking for them. Captain Thorn had found this hiding place 2 days ago after they escaped from Karis 7. The asteroids would block most scans, giving them time to repair their damaged ship. In the medical bay, Naya floated in her tank with several machines connected to her body. Lee So-young, the human medical officer, worked alongside the ship's medical computer to help heal her injuries. The feedback from the ship's damage had hurt Naya's nervous system badly. "How is she?" Kim Day asked as he entered the medical bay. Lee So-young looked up from her work. She was a woman with short black hair and kind eyes. "Better than yesterday. The internal bleeding has stopped, but it will take time for her nervous system to heal completely." Kim Day nodded and looked at Naya through the clear walls of her tank. The fish-like alien's fins moved slowly as she breathed through her gills. Her eyes were closed, but Kim Day could see that she was getting better. "Thank you for helping her," Kim Day said to Lee So-young. "She saved all of us," Lee So-young replied. "It is the least I can do." Kim Day left the medical bay and walked to the cargo area, where the other rescued prisoners were staying. Most of the 30 beings they had saved were resting or talking quietly among themselves. The crew had given them food, blankets, and medical care. In one corner, Park Min sat with the other humans. Choi Jun was a young man who had been a soldier before his ship was destroyed. Han Na was an engineer like Kim Day. Song Tai had worked on communications systems. "Any luck with the transmitter?" Kim Day asked as he sat down with them. Park Min shook his head. "The parts we need are not on this ship. We would need military-grade communications equipment to send a signal far enough." For the past 2 days, the humans had been working on a plan. Park Min had told them something important. Before his colony, ship was destroyed. They had managed to send out a distress call on old human military frequencies. These were secret communication channels that only humans knew about. If any human world survived the hegemony's first attacks, Park Min had explained, they would be listening for signals on those frequencies. The problem was that the silent, current's communication system was not strong enough to send a signal across the galaxy. They could talk to other ships nearby, but not to distant star systems. "What if we modified the ship's main communications array?" Han Na suggested. She was young but very smart about technology. "I worked on similar systems before." "The power requirements would be too high," Song Tai said. "We would need to redirect power from other systems." Kim Day thought about this. Over the past 6 months, he had learned everything about the silent currents systems. He knew every wire, every circuit, every component. "What if we use the ship's hyperspace drive?" Kim Day said suddenly. The others looked at him with confusion. "The hyperspace drive generates a lot of energy," Kim Day explained. "More than any other system on the ship. If we could redirect some of that energy to the communications array." Park Min's eyes lit up. "That might work, but it would be very dangerous. If we make a mistake, we could damage the hyperspace drive." "Or blow up the ship," Song Tae added. Kim Dae stood up. I need to talk to Captain Thorne. He found Thorne on the bridge, working with Rix to repair the damage from their battle with the hegemony fighters. The insect engineer was inside an access panel, fixing burned circuits with her many arms. Captain, Kim Dae said, I need to ask you something important. Thorne looked up from his work. What is it? Kim Dae explained the plan to modify the ship's communication system. He told Thorne about the human military frequencies and the possibility that other humans might still be alive somewhere in the galaxy. It is risky, Kim Dae admitted. We could damage the ship, but if there are other humans out there, they might be able to help us fight the hegemony. Thorne was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he asked, What would you say in this message? Kim Dae had been thinking about this for hours. I would tell them what happened to me, how you and your crew saved my life, how we found other human survivors. I would ask for help. And if this brings danger to us? Thorne asked. If the hegemony detects our signal? Then we run, Kim Dae said simply. We are already in danger. The hegemony knows we helped prisoners escape. They will be looking for us anyway. Rix crawled out of the access panel and looked at Kim Dae with her large compound eyes. This human plan is crazy, but it might work. Thorne smiled at his engineer. What do you think, Rix? Can we modify the communications array without destroying the ship? Rix clicked her mandibles together, which meant she was thinking hard. It will be difficult. We would need to build new circuits and reroute power conduits. It will take days. Then we better get started, Thorne said. For the next 3 days, the crew of the Silent Current worked together to modify their ship. Kim Dae and Han Na designed new circuits while Rix and Choi Jun built them. Song Tai and Vex worked on the software that would control the enhanced communications array. Park Min helped by sharing his knowledge of human military communication protocols. He had been a captain for 10 years before his ship was destroyed, and he knew the secret codes that human ships used to identify themselves. Even some of the other rescued prisoners helped. A tall alien named Kef, who came from a species that was good with electronics, assisted with the wiring. A small furry being called Pip helped carry tools and parts. On the 4th day, they were ready to test their creation. Power levels look good, Song Tae reported from his position at the communications console. Hyperspace drive is stable, Rick said from the engine room. All circuits are connected, Han-Na said, checking her tablet. Kim Dae stood next to Captain Thorne on the bridge. In his hand, he held a small device that contained the message he wanted to send. Are you sure about this? Thorne asked. Kim Dae nodded. If there are humans out there, they need to know that some of us survived. They need to know about you and what you did for me. Thorne looked around the bridge at his crew. Vex's crystal body was glowing with nervous energy. Through the speaker, they could hear Naya's voice from the medical bay where she was monitoring the ship's systems. Do it, Thorne said. Kim Dae plugged his device into the communications console. The message was short but important. This is Kim Dae of Earth, calling any human forces. I am alive and free thanks to the crew of the merchant vessel Silent Current. Captain Cale Thorne and his crew saved my life when they found me dying in space. They risked everything to rescue me and other human prisoners from the hegemony. The hegemony has scattered our people across the Rim territories. Many are enslaved, or dead, but some still live. We need help. These aliens are my family now. They showed me that there is still kindness in the galaxy. If anyone receives this message, please respond. We are hiding in the Keras system asteroid field. Kim Dae out. He activated the transmission. The ship's lights dimmed as massive amounts of power flowed from the hyperspace drive to the communications array. The enhanced transmitter sent the message racing across the galaxy at faster than light speeds. Message sent, Song Tae reported. Signal strength is good. It should reach the core systems. Now they had to wait. The message would take time to reach distant star systems, and any reply would take time to come back. For 6 hours, they waited. In the asteroid field, Kim Dae sat on the bridge staring at the communications console and hoping for an answer. Maybe there is nobody left, Choi Jun said sadly. He had lost his entire family when his ship was destroyed. There has to be someone, Kimday said. Humans are survivors. We do not give up easily. Like you, Thorn said with a smile. You never gave up, even when you were dying in that escape pod. As the hours passed, some of the crew started to lose hope. Maybe all the human worlds had been destroyed. Maybe Kimday's message had been lost in the vastness of space. But Kimday kept believing. Somewhere out there, his people were alive. They had to be. Then, at the 8-hour mark, something happened. Captain. Vex's crystal body suddenly blazed with bright white light. I am receiving a transmission. Everyone on the bridge turned to look at the communications console. The signal was strong and clear, much stronger than their own equipment should have been able to receive. It is on the human military frequency, Songtai said with excitement. Play it, Kimday said, his voice shaking with emotion. The bridge, filled with a clear, strong voice speaking in Korean. Kimday of Earth, this is Admiral Yoon Hee-jin of the Terran Defense Fleet. Your message has been received and confirmed. We thought all our rim colonies were lost. To learn that humans still live and fight in the outer territories fills our hearts with hope. You and your alien friends have done something remarkable. Stay hidden and stay safe. Help is coming. We have been waiting for this moment for 50 years. The Terran Federation remembers its children. Admiral Yoon out. Kimday felt tears running down his face. Around him, the crew of the Silent Current looked amazed. Terran Defense Fleet. Park, Min said with wonder. I thought Earth was destroyed. Apparently not, Kimday said, wiping his eyes. Somehow some of our people survived and built a fleet. Did she say 50 years? Han-na asked. Songtai nodded. She said they have been waiting 50 years. That means the human government survived the first hegemony attacks and has been... 3 months had passed since Kimday sent his message to the Terran Defense Fleet. The Outer Rim territories were in chaos. Every day brought new reports of hegemony outposts going dark, slave ships being destroyed, and entire systems being liberated by mysterious human forces. The crew of the Silent Current had moved to a safer hiding place in the Vega Nebula, where the thick clouds of gas and dust made it impossible for enemy ships to find them. They shared this hiding place with dozens of other refugees, freed slaves, escaped prisoners, and anyone else running from the war. Captain Thorne stood on the bridge watching the daily intelligence reports. The screens showed a map of the galaxy with red and blue dots marking hegemony and human forces. Every day, more red dots disappeared and more blue ones appeared. The humans are winning, said Vex, his crystal body glowing with amazement. I did not think it was possible. Kimday sat at the communication station monitoring the reports. He had become the unofficial coordinator for the refugee fleet hiding in the nebula. Every day more ships arrived with stories of human fleets appearing without warning and demanding the immediate release of all prisoners. Look at this, Kimday said, pointing to a report on his screen. The human fleet liberated the Proxima slave markets yesterday. They freed over 10,000 beings from 50 different species. Park Min, who was now officially the Silent Current's first officer, studied the tactical reports. The Terran Defense Fleet is using our intelligence well. They are hitting exactly the targets we told them about. Lee So-young entered the bridge from the medical bay. Naya is much better today. She wants to return to duty. Not yet, Thorne said firmly. She is still recovering. In the 3 months since their escape from Kara 7, Naya had slowly healed from her injuries. The damage to her nervous system had been severe, but Lee So-young's medical knowledge had helped save her life. Captain, Rix called from her engineering station. I am detecting ships approaching the nebula. Everyone on the bridge became alert. The nebula was supposed to be their safe hiding place. If hegemony forces had found them, they would all be in great danger. How many ships? Thorne asked. Many, Rix said, her antennae twitching nervously. More than I can count. They are big ships, much bigger than anything the hegemony has. Kimday quickly worked at his console, trying to identify the approaching fleet. When he saw the results, his heart started beating fast. Captain, he said, his voice full of excitement. Those are human ships, and they are broadcasting Terran Defense Fleet identification codes. On the main screen, they could see the shapes of massive warships emerging from hyperspace. These were not the small, fast ships that the hegemony used. These were huge vessels designed for long-range warfare. The lead ship was enormous, bigger than some space stations. Its hull was dark gray with blue markings, and it bristled with weapons and defensive systems. Along its side, painted in large letters, was the name Soul's Vengeance. "This is Admiral Yoon Hye-jin of the Terran Defense Fleet," a voice said over the communication system. "We are looking for the merchant vessel Silent Current and a human named Kim Dae." Kim Dae's hands shook as he reached for the communicator. "This is Kim Dae aboard the Silent Current. Admiral, is it really you?" "Yes, Kim Dae, it is really me. Request permission to come aboard your vessel. I have much to discuss with you and your crew." Thorn looked at Kim Dae. "What do you think?" "I think our lives are about to change forever," Kim Dae said. An hour later, a shuttle from the Soul's Vengeance docked with the Silent Current. Admiral Yoon Hye-jin came aboard with a full honor guard of Terran Marines. Admiral Yoon was a woman in her 50s, with short gray hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. She wore a dark blue uniform with many medals and rank insignia. When she saw Kim Dae, she immediately walked over and embraced him like a family member. "Kim Dae," she said in Korean, "you have no idea how important your message was to us." "Admiral," Kim Dae replied also in Korean, "I cannot believe you are here. I thought we were alone." Admiral Yoon looked around the bridge at the crew of the Silent Current. "These are the beings who saved you?" "Yes," Kim Dae said. "This is Captain Cale Thorn, who made the decision to rescue me. This is Rix, who kept me alive when I was dying. This is Vex, who taught me to communicate. And this is our navigator Naya, who is still recovering from injuries she received while helping us rescue human prisoners." Admiral Yoon walked over to Captain Thorn and offered her hand in the human gesture of greeting. Thorn, who had learned human customs from Kim Dae, shook her hand. "Captain Thorn," Admiral Yoon said in the common trade language, "on behalf of the Terran Federation and all of humanity, I thank you. Your decision to save Kim Dae's life has changed the course of history." Thorn looked confused. "I do not understand, Admiral. We just did what anyone would do." Admiral Yoon smiled. "That is exactly why you are so remarkable. You saw a dying being and decided to help, even though it cost you money you could not afford. That kind of compassion is rare in the galaxy." She turned to address all of them. "Let me explain what has happened since we received Kim Dae's message. The Terran Federation has been hiding in the galactic core for 50 years, rebuilding our strength after the hegemony's first attacks. We thought all our outer colonies were destroyed. We had no intelligence about what was happening in the Rim territories. Admiral Yoon activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy. Kim Dae's message gave us something precious: hope and information. Hope that our people still lived and information about where to find them. The hologram showed the movements of Terran forces over the past 3 months. Blue arrows swept out from the galactic core toward the Rim territories, striking hegemony positions with devastating effect. Using the intelligence you provided, we have liberated 43 star systems. We have freed over 2 million beings from slavery, including 12,000 humans. The hegemony's control of the Rim territories is collapsing." Park Min stepped forward. "Admiral, what about Earth?" Kim Dae said he was from Earth. Admiral Yoon's expression became sad. Earth was destroyed in the first hegemony attack 50 years ago. Kim Dae's colony ship was one of the last to escape. But the Terran Federation survived. We rebuilt on New Terra and dozens of other hidden worlds. Kim Dae felt tears in his eyes. He had always hoped that Earth still existed somewhere. But at least his people had survived. "What happens now?" Captain Thorn asked. "Now we finish what the hegemony started," Admiral Yoon said, her voice becoming hard. "We drive them out of the Rim territories completely. But we will not do it alone. Every species they enslaved, every world they conquered, every being they oppressed, all of them are joining our cause." She looked directly at the crew of the Silent Current. You have been offered full citizenship in the Terran Federation, with all the rights and protections that provides. Your ship will be upgraded with the finest technology we have. But more than that, you will be remembered as heroes. Rix clicked her mandibles nervously. We are not heroes, Admiral. We are just merchants. You are heroes whether you know it or not, Admiral Yoon said. Because of your kindness to one human, millions of beings are now free. Your story is being told throughout the galaxy. Every species knows about the alien crew who saved a human and changed history. Over the next few hours, Admiral Yoon explained the new situation in the galaxy. The Terran Defense Fleet was not just rescuing humans, they were liberating everyone. Every species that had been enslaved by the hegemony was being offered freedom and protection. We learned something important from Kim Dae's message, Admiral Yoon said. The galaxy is full of good beings who will help each other if given the chance. The hegemony survived by keeping species apart, making them fear each other. We are doing the opposite, bringing everyone together. She showed them images of the liberated worlds. Humans and aliens were working side by side to rebuild what the hegemony had destroyed. Former slaves were becoming citizens. Conquered worlds were becoming free. This is the galaxy we are fighting for, Admiral Yoon said. A place where what happened on the silent current can happen everywhere. Different species helping each other, treating each other as family. Kim Dae looked around at his alien family. Captain Thorne, who had given him a new life. Rix, who had become like a sister to him. Vex, who had taught him so much. Naya, who had risked her life to save others. Admiral, Kim Dae said. What about the silent current? What about my crew? That is up to them, Admiral Yoon said. They can join the Terran fleet if they want. They can return to being merchants with our protection and support, or they can do something else entirely. Whatever they choose, they will have our eternal gratitude. Captain Thorne looked at his crew. What do you think? I want to keep flying, Rick said. But maybe we can do more than just carry cargo. We could help with the rebuilding, Vex suggested. Many worlds will need supplies and assistance. I would like to help train other medical officers, Lee So-young said. There will be many refugees who need care. Naya's voice came through the speaker from the medical bay. I want to help guide ships to safety. Like we guided Kim Dae to safety. Kim Dae felt proud of his family. Even after everything they had been through, they still wanted to help others. Admiral, Thorne said, we would like to keep the silent curry. 1 year after Kim Dae had sent his message across the galaxy, the war against the hegemony was nearly over. The silent current sat in orbit around New Terra, the capital world of the Terran Federation. Through the viewports, they could see the blue and green planet that had become humanity's new home after Earth was destroyed. Kim Dae stood on the bridge wearing his new uniform as an ambassador of the Terran Federation. The dark blue fabric had silver insignia that marked his rank and achievements, but even in his formal clothes, he still looked like the same young engineer who had been rescued from a dying escape pod. Are you nervous? Captain Thorne asked. He was also wearing a new uniform, the gray and blue of the Terran humanitarian fleet. All of them had been given official ranks and positions, but they were still the same crew that had flown together for over a year. A little, Kim Dae admitted. I have never spoken to so many important people before. Today was the day of the Great Liberation Ceremony. Representatives from every species that had been freed from hegemony rule would gather in the Federation council chambers. The crew of the Silent Current would be honored as the beings whose actions had started the Liberation War. You will do fine, Rick said. She was cleaning her new engineering tools with nervous energy. You have spoken to admirals and generals. A few more people will not be different. But Kim Dae knew it would be different. Today, the entire galaxy would hear the story of how one act of kindness had changed everything. Over the past year, the Terran Defense Fleet had crushed the hegemony's forces in battle after battle. The empire that had ruled through fear and slavery for over a century was finally defeated. Their last stronghold had fallen 3 weeks ago, and their leaders were now prisoners awaiting trial. But the war had been won by more than just military force. As the Terran fleets liberated each world, they found that the local populations were ready to rise up against their oppressors. The story of the silent current had spread across the galaxy, inspiring beings everywhere to believe that freedom was possible. Ambassador Kim Day, a voice said through the ship's communicator, "Your shuttle is ready." Kim Day took a deep breath and looked at his family one more time. "I will see you all at the ceremony." The shuttle flight to the surface took only 20 minutes, but Kim Day spent the time thinking about everything that had happened. He remembered waking up in the medical bay of the silent current, confused and scared. He remembered the first time Captain Thorne had called him family. He remembered the moment when Admiral Yoon's voice had answered his desperate message. The Federation Council chambers were huge, with seats for over 1,000 representatives. Beings from dozens of species filled the hall, some that Kim Day recognized, and many that he had never seen before. All of them had been freed from hegemony, rule in the past year. At the center of the chamber was a raised platform where Kim Day would give his speech. As he walked toward it, he could hear conversations in many different languages, but when the beings in the audience saw him, they began to quiet down. Admiral Yoon met him at the platform. "Are you ready, Ambassador?" "I think so," Kim Day said. "Remember," Admiral Yoon said quietly, "you are not just telling your story. You are telling the story of what the galaxy can become when beings choose to help each other, instead of hurt each other." Kim Day walked up to the speaking platform and looked out at the audience. In the front row, he could see the crew of the silent current. Captain Thorne gave him an encouraging nod. Rix's antennae were pointed forward with attention. Vex's crystal body was glowing with warm colors. Naya, now fully recovered from her injuries, was sitting in a special water-filled chair that allowed her to attend the ceremony. Behind them sat hundreds of other beings, former slaves who were now free citizens, refugee children who would grow up in peace, leaders of worlds that had been liberated from oppression. "Honored representatives," Kim Day began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's sound system. "My name is Kim Day, and I'm here to tell you a story about family." He paused and looked directly at his crew. "1 year ago, I was dying alone in the darkness of space. My ship had been destroyed by the hegemony. My people had been scattered or enslaved. I thought I was the last free human in the galaxy." The chamber was completely silent now. Every being was listening to his words. But I was found by the crew of a small merchant ship called the Silent Current. Captain Cale Thorne and his crew had never seen a human before. They did not know what I was or where I came from. They only knew that I was dying and needed help. Kim Day gestured toward his crew. "They could have left me to die. It would have been easier, safer, cheaper, but they chose to save me instead. They spent money they could not afford. They risked their lives to keep me alive. They welcomed me into their family even though I was a stranger." He saw many beings in the audience nodding. They understood what it meant to be helped by strangers. For 6 months I lived with them and learned from them. I learned that family is not about what species you are or where you come from. Family is about choosing to care for each other. Family is about being willing to sacrifice for others. Kim Day's voice became stronger as he continued. "When we found other human prisoners being held by the hegemony, my alien family risked their lives again to help me rescue them. They were injured and their ship was damaged, but they did not regret their choice to help." In the audience, Lee, So Young, wiped tears from her eyes. She remembered that terrible day when they had escaped from Keras 7. From those rescued prisoners, we learned that other humans might still be alive somewhere in the galaxy. So we sent a message hoping that someone would hear us. That message reached Admiral Yoon and the Terran Defense Fleet. Kim Day looked up at the ceiling of the chamber, as if he could see through it to the stars beyond. What happened next was amazing. Humanity had survived the hegemony's attacks. They had spent 50 years rebuilding their strength and waiting for the right moment to return. My message gave them that moment. The audience began to murmur with excitement. Many of them had lived through the liberation campaigns and knew how quickly the Terran forces had defeated the hegemony. But here is the most important part of this story, Kim Day said, his voice rising. When humanity returned to the Rim territories, they did not come just to save humans. They came to save everyone. Every species that had been enslaved, every world that had been conquered, every being that had been oppressed. The murmur in the audience became louder. Representatives from dozens of species were nodding and making sounds of agreement. The Terran Defense Fleet learned something from my message, Kim Day continued. They learned that the galaxy is full of good beings who will help each other, if given the chance. They learned that the hegemony's greatest weakness was not their military forces, but their belief that different species could never work together. Kim Day paused and looked directly at Captain Thorne again. One alien captain chose to save one human life. That choice led to the liberation of millions of beings across hundreds of worlds. It proved that small acts of kindness can change the fate of the entire galaxy. The audience was on their feet now, many species making their own sounds of approval and celebration. Kim Day waited for the noise to quiet down before continuing. Today we celebrate the end of the Hegemony War, but more than that, we celebrate the beginning of something new. A galaxy where different species choose to help each other instead of hurt each other. A galaxy where being different is not a reason for fear, but a reason for celebration. Kim Day gestured to include the entire audience. Look around you. In this room, we have beings from dozens of species. A year ago, many of you were slaves. Today, you are free citizens working together to build a better future. He smiled as he looked at his alien family one more time. The crew of the Silent Current taught me that family is not about blood or species. Family is about choice. Today, all of us are choosing to be family. Kim Day's voice became quiet, but it still carried to every corner of the chamber. The hegemony ruled through fear and division. They told every species that the others were enemies. But we have learned the truth. We are not enemies. We are family. The audience erupted in cheers, applause, and the sounds of celebration from dozens of different species. Kim Day stood on the platform and felt tears running down his face as he watched beings who had been enemies just 1 year ago, celebrating together as friends. After the ceremony, there was a reception where representatives from all the different species could meet and talk. Kim Day moved through the crowd shaking hands, fins, claws, and other appendages, as beings thanked him for his role in their liberation. But the moment he had been waiting for came when he finally rejoined the crew of the Silent Current in a quiet corner of the reception hall. So, Captain Thorne said with his familiar smile, how does it feel to be the most famous human in the galaxy? Lonely, Kim Day said honestly. All those people were thanking me, but I could not have done any of it without you. Rix put one of her 6 arms around Kim Day's shoulders. That is what family is for. What happens now? Naya asked. The war is over. The hegemony is defeated. What do we do next? Kim Day looked around at the reception, where hundreds of beings from different species were talking, laughing, and planning their